Right, hello everybody. Hopefully you can see my screen now, which says what should the marketing strategy look like. If you can't, then we're in trouble, but hopefully that's going to be sorted. Good, we're there, and
Yeah,
you can all hear me. That's brilliant. So yeah, thank you very much for introducing me. I do recognise some of the names as well, actually, of people who I've sort of spoken with before, and I guess that's part of as Alicia's introduction that saying I've worked in this sector as marketing advice for schools for about 6 or 7 years now, and I think I've counting it up really, worked with about 350 schools through training mainly and strategy and so on, working on these. And one of the things that I think was really exciting about being asked to do this talk and the course that goes with it is that marketing is becoming more serious. I think taken in schools, there's obviously lots of things going on at the minute that we don't talk about, like VAT, and elections and stuff that are making it, marketing and bringing in money and things becoming more important for independent schools, but also schools are getting bigger, investing and taking these things on. So one of the things that marketing has always been seen as, sort of a little bit too focused on, the everyday filling in newsletters, or as somebody was saying this morning, making decorations and putting up banners and so on. But actually, that's not really what marketing should be in schools. It should be much more strategic, and that's what the course that I put together with Luco is about. But what we're going to talk about today is one key part of that really, which is writing a strategy. How do we actually do it? How do we make it work? How do we make it so that it is actually delivered, rather than having lots of bits of paper flying around the place and people asking you what you're doing. So when I started the strategy, this sort of idea, the first quote that came to mind was actually from the talk that oh, that's interesting. That's building without me doing anything. It'll probably pop up with these things over time. But a few weeks ago, the Independent Schools Portal Marketing Conference, and listening to Hannah Hamilton from United Learning, and she said this line about optimism is not a strategy, and I think that's really really important because sometimes we just sort of sit there and go, yes, we'll do whatever you say. I've had lots of experience. Oh, it is going. It's a bit. This is building without me touching the screen, which is wonderful. So I will try and catch up with it. But that's great. But one of the things that I've had over the years is people turning up to courses and turning up to sessions and saying things like, "Oh, I've just been told that we're opening a nursery next year and I need to find 20 children for it. What do I do?" And the answer to that is, well, don't try and open one in a year's time, but we can try and help you. So the idea is to think very much about, taking this very seriously, long term and strategic. So the key things we can do, and the first three have popped up here already, which is brilliant. The first thing is to make sure that you always your strategy is always aligned with the school strategy and goals, and that you're part of that process and that you're part of that team. And if you're not, you should be. And I'll talk a bit about how to get in there in a second or two. Second one, again, the optimism thing. One of the biggest downsides of marketing is that it doesn't always work. And it doesn't always work to the extent we want it to work. And you need to be sort of realistic with that. Um, Number three here, we'll talk about this. I'll go through this in more detail with examples in a second. Is to think about research first of all, and a lot of the course that I've written talks about research. Rather than sort of jumping in again to try and do something, you need to really understand who you're talking to, what they want from you, and so on. And we'll see that. Um, then internal change, really, really important as well. That's going to be part of a strategy. It's, as marketeers, it's not just about saying what we will do in terms of social media or websites. It is about changing the curriculum. Shock horror. It is about changing what we do. This is not good. This is now running too fast. Okay, stop. Right. This is about you know, being let's go back. You can do that there. Sorry, that's better. Changing things internally before you start your external communication. Then you can do the things that we would do in marketing generally, with looking at different channels to communicate through, and so on. And then of course you've got the creative side of marketing, the marketing magic bit, which is the fun. What do things look like? And I think this is what makes marketing and you guys such an interesting role and such a challenging role, because you have to do both these things at the same time. You have to be very organized, but you also have to be very creative, and that's the challenge there. So let's have a look at these in detail in different sections. So first of all, people say, what does a marketing plan look like? And I think this is what a marketing plan might look like. And you might have different plans, and you might have a different model that you do, but this is one that I've used with a lot of schools, and they seem to like it. No one seems to come back and say, oh, it's missing something. But if you think it's missing something, or you want to change something, then please do come back at the end, or add something in the chat and say what yours is like that makes it different. But what we've got here is, as we said, the strategic idea, okay, and then a whole series of things we do in response to that. So the strategic bit, okay, we're going to put in here. This is the example I'm going to go through in this session. So apologies if you're a prep school, but it's this sort of idea of we want to increase the sixth form because we've got space, it's not full, and we need to do something like that. So this is the sort of strategic side of things with that. Oh, hang on, stop. Right, okay, stop. This is the first stop of my session. Right. Sometimes you're given that, okay, and as I said, with the person starting the nursery, you're just given that and you're told to go away and come back with 20% more people. And that's the problem, because your marketing plan needs to be seen as part of the school development plan, and you need to be part of that top team with that. So I would challenge the school and say, great, we've got an idea, we've got something we want to do, but can I work with a governor on this, because it's strategic? Okay, and we should have somebody at that level who is, aware of what's happening. If anyone asks the governing body, what's going on, they need to know that. Have you got the opportunity to liaise with your senior leadership team, at least every quarter about the project that is so big like that, so no one is surprised, no one is taken aback by that, and can you, as a marketing team, as a marketing director, go back to the governors and things. So making sure the plan is linked into the overall strategy of the school. Okay, that's the first sort of big thing. Okay, so fantastic. Let's go back to the plan. So we've done that. Okay, we've got the plan, and as I said, the first thing you might want to do as a marketing person is to actually do some research, and that goes back to the definition of marketing that I use a lot for the Chartered Institute of Marketing, which is about listening and about understanding the needs of stakeholders. Okay, so we need to think about that. So here are some things that you might do if you had a sixth form problem, that maybe you've had that in your schools. So we've got some internal research, some external research, and then a bit of strategic evaluation topics and things like that. And then, of course, you could say who's going to do this, so we can fill the plan a little bit with that. Maybe it's you would work with somebody who's in charge of the sixth form pastorally in order to do that. Maybe you get an external research company in. There are lots of good ones that will do this for you very efficiently, and have a look at that. And then maybe you'll get together and talk about what's happening. But the thing about this sort of initial plan is, as I said, there's nothing here about putting a post on social media or anything like that. It's all very, very much research based, and it's also got enough time to actually do the work properly, rather than just spending a week doing it. Take it a bit slowly, and see what you're going to do with that. So this is the sort of initial idea. As I said, if you've got any thoughts on this, I think the chat is open, so you can drop any questions or thoughts into that, and I can see it, so that'd be great. Okay, back to this slide here. Cool. Oh, hang on, we've got another little stop thing here. Okay, so we've got an idea, a plan, and then people say, well, hang on, what do we actually do to actually make sure that it's working? And one of the things, again, with schools is that we're quite used to really sort of hard targets. Things like a certain number of people must pass their GCSEs, or everybody must get must get their performance P8 or whatever it is these days that are there. I could say sorry, Haley, question. I can send you the slides. It's also being recorded, I think, so you can get both. Yep, I'll flat back the slides in there when we get there. So that's good. So schools are used to lots of little targets and things like that, and people are based on them. Now, my problem with marketing and lots of targets like that is this thing called Goodhart's law, which is that if you start just focusing on one target, that becomes the only thing, and then you sort of forget everything that's happening. So if, for example, the target there, we said there was to get 20% more people in sixth form, you might start taking lots of things to get people in very quickly, and start offering them all sorts of things, and start offering people immense discounts on fees, for example, or free places, and that might be a really good idea, but it might not actually work in the long term. So what you need to think about really is having a series of metrics around your program, in terms of how many people you get to events, how many people look at the web traffic, look at your website, how much income you're actually making through this. So I'll show you when we go back to the slides later on and the plan later on, how that might work. I think it's also important, and I was talking to someone yesterday who's training with that again, about keeping the stakes quite low with this, particularly if you are just starting off in a marketing role. Don't again, this optimism idea, don't try and say, yes, we'll solve everything in the first year, because in this case, for example, we know that people choose their sixth form maybe 2-3 years in advance. If you're opening a nursery, people choose from birth where they're going to send their children. That sort of idea. Do be honest in your reporting, though. Don't try and hide things. Don't say, everything's fine, and then suddenly people find that things aren't fine, and there's a big problem with that. And then the final thing really about monitoring is that people often look at the negative side of things, but actually, when you are doing a plan, quite often you get some positive things appearing. So you start doing some research, and you find that people really love you. Okay, and people really enjoy coming to sixth form, and you've got some really positive things about that. People might say great things about individual teachers or individual members of the senior leadership team, and so on. And again, flag that up, celebrate it, because that's actually something that that will keep you going and keep everyone on side and happy. Okay, so yes, so we've sort of got a plan, and we've got some ideas in place, and we're sort of doing a bit of monitoring in the idea with that, which is there. So let's get back to the plan. Okay, let's roll forwards a couple of months, and let's see what we may have found out with our research. So I've just put some key findings onto the plan, and so on, so we can actually see what's happening. So again, this might not be a surprise for any of you who have sixth forms that have done this research, but as I said, you will find different things for your school if we do this. So I've picked a few things here. We've got some demographic change, which is your big external research that looks pretty good for the next few years. We've got an increase in numbers, so we don't worry about the whole program being wrong. We think we can do this. We've got different courses. Again, if you don't offer psychology and sociology in your sixth form, you are going to lose a lot of people these days. But that's something maybe the school didn't do. Look at competitors. We've got some interesting things happening there. I came across one school when I was doing some research recently that was doing flexible Fridays for year 13s, and basically seemed to say that if you were in year 13, you didn't have to come in on Fridays, which is a nice selling point for some people. Whether or not the results will hang up with that. Sorry, this is whether or not the results would actually work or not is a different matter with that. But they've come up that's the research there. And again, something that you may have seen before, people talking about apprenticeships and quite interested in how a sixth form study might lead to apprenticeships in the future. Okay, so again, this is not specific to any particular school, but it's just some ideas about what would happen. So the question is, what do we do as a response to this? Well, the first thing, as I said, with a plan, is probably to look internally, okay, with this, and report back to your senior leadership team and say, this is what we found, and here are some ideas as to what we need to do, and let them think what they need to do as well. So, at the bottom here, you can see highlighted, what we would do is bring in some new courses. Now, that's not an easy thing to do straight away, and that's something that your academic deputy head probably would start getting annoyed about if you start suggesting more staff and timetabling and things, but that could be very important. For that might take a while to do. It might cost quite a bit of money to bring in people. It may be that you already have teachers who could teach those courses. It may be that you're teaching them part-time because they're not in enormous demand. But that sort of idea there, you're spending some money and you're retaining students. And we haven't actually done anything that is marketing, or that's traditionally seen as marketing, and we've probably got halfway there. Okay, but that's the point. That's about research and meeting the needs of our stakeholders. The second thing here is to, as I said, create a sixth form development plan to try and persuade people that you are matching what other schools are doing, so you can go outside. Again, there might be lots of other ideas, but that's something you might do. You might work with the development director, development department if you have one. If you're a small school, you possibly don't have one. But that's the sort of idea that's happening here. And again, what we've got there is you've got a range of success criteria. We're not just saying we're going to get everyone in that way. We've got a few ideas as to what's happening with that. Okay, so that's the plan developing. There we go. That was good. That changed at just the right time I wanted it to. And then we've got, imagine this is sort of scrolled down. Okay, we've got the sort of internal change, sort of marketing changes that you might do as well. So a fairly standard process that you might get, you gather some evidence to support the changes you're making, interviewing some students, interview some parents. I'm really excited about the extra courses that are being offered. I really want to study psychology. I'd love to come here. Parents talking about how good the sixth form facilities have been and how they're excited about the future. That might be something to do with that. If you have a school media team, which possibly could have, which is your pupils going around and taking pictures. They could do that for you and save you lots of time. You could do some internal promotion, again, working on the students that you already have, and you could do some external promotion with things like your social media and events and so on. But this is entirely up to you, obviously, what you're doing. But we're building this plan together, and you see it's a couple of pages long, but it's short enough that anyone can get a quick overview of what you're doing. If you're a senior leadership team member, your bursar, your governor, they get an idea of what's happening without needing to know the full details. But you might also, behind that, have other plans that are more tactical. I know this is something that I've talked about a fair bit on courses in the past. I think it's a really useful little tool to use in terms of tactical communication. It's the Google Hub Hygiene Hero model, which essentially takes the communication that you need to put out there and says we're going to do it by week, and well, let's put the things in here, and the hygiene is the things that just people need to know about. So the practical things in this case, we need to make sure that people apply on time. We need to make sure that's going out there. The hubs are the key messages we're trying to put through, so you can see some ideas that the timing those messages to go out about the students. But also we've got the development idea as well. Are we going to focus on those? So we've got something we're focusing on each week in terms of communication, and then we've got this idea of the hero event, which in Google's terms is something that you're building up to, and you might be spending 3 or 4 weeks really getting people's interest in this event, talking about it internally, talking about it in assemblies, talking about it with feeder schools maybe that don't have a sixth form. If you've got any schools in the area that you might get into and talk to about that. But this is the sort of idea that you've got a day-to-day calendar of what's happening behind that. Okay, that's the sort of idea with that. Oh, hang on, we've got another stop one here. Okay, so this is all going nicely, but what happens if something goes wrong? And I put two versions of this quote in the top corner, depending upon how formal you are and also who you're talking to, if you want to use one of these. The original problem, the idea that things go wrong without any plan, was the German Field Marshal Helmut von Moltke. No plans to rise contact with the enemy sounds really good. But I like Mike Tyson's version. He was asked, I think it was a match, a boxing match that he was at, and his opponent said, I have a plan. I have a plan for everything you're going to do. And Mike Tyson said, I'd like to see how that plan works when I punch you in the mouth. So that's the sort of got paraphrased as to that sort of idea. But things go wrong. Something doesn't happen. You can't find the right people you want to talk to, or something changes. Or you can't recruit the right staff to do this. So what you need to be aware of is, that there's a plan for problems coming in here. So a few ideas are to build some contingency into that, contingency in terms of time and contingency in terms of money, and possibly also people resource as well. So that, for example, if you say, oh, we will find a new teacher in 3 months' time, it might take a bit longer, so actually we're not that worried if it takes 4 or 5 months with that. A bit of extra money to support events. If people aren't coming, you can put a bit more into Facebook advertising if that's something that you're doing to get people in, or you can run an extra advert in a local magazine or something like that. That's happening there. Again, the idea of plan B, the idea that if people have had lots of good ideas, but maybe you decide to go on one version, you could write up a second version, just in case the first version proves not to work in practice, and you could have that plan to pull out, and maybe you're going to do something entirely different if plan A doesn't work. And that was the big German sort of military idea, I think, that they came up with there. The idea of say the review idea we talked about with monitoring, but again having that sort of regular, honest, review with and with the different stakeholders as well. So it's not just marketing talking about marketing. It's talking to finance. It's talking to HR or your academic side of the business. The school, what's happening there, and also the final bit is if things do go badly wrong, there can be a tendency to sort of slide into an immediate fixing solution, but actually without the research happening. So you need to think, if we're going to do something completely different, we need to go back to the beginning. If we're going to use the sixth form building to build a nursery instead of putting sixth formers in there because, say, we found that the demographics were suitable for that. Okay, we then need to go back and start researching nurseries. We can't just go, oh, we'll just go straight out and talking to people about nurseries. So that's the sort of the more strategic side of things that we would do with that. The other thing I think that's really important with sort of strategic planning is that we're always looking around for that sort of inspiration as to what other people are doing. And I just thought I'd put in here a couple of things I saw that have come out quite recently that will give you that inspiration rather than me necessarily talking through lots of examples. The AMCIS, I hope many of you guys will be aware of AMCIS anyway. Their impact awards come out every year, and I think I've just seen that in the last few weeks. It may have been out for a while, but I've just seen it. Have a look at that and see what the schools in there are doing in terms of their strategies for marketing. And if you want to go internationally, I've been a judge of the Inspired Brilliance Awards for about 5 or 6 years now. I was the first non-American judge, which was quite funny because it started in America and then moved internationally for independent schools. And I started doing a lot of judging American entries and having to translate things in my head and so on. But it's actually a really good place to look for inspiration. And of course, you can enter either of those awards yourself if you have the opportunity to do that. So yeah, so again, very quickly, Alicia mentioned the course that we put together with her and David and other people, and essentially the idea is it takes some of the themes we've talked about today and makes them much bigger. So you could just see a quick overview there of the different sessions within that, more research and lots of lovely models like the Ansoff matrix and things like that that you may like, or you may come across if you study for a master's course in marketing at some point. So I'd say that's pretty much a sort of really quick whiz through of this. If you want to ask me questions, now's a really good time to do so. Or you can get in touch with me any point with that email there. And I've also put up a couple of books that I've written on the screen in case you're interested. So yes, hopefully that's of interest.